Good evening. Hey, howdy. Delighted to have all of you out here tonight in this beautiful, newly inaugurated space to hear about design inspirations. We'll get to hear from our three distinguished panelists about what inspires their design and also new insights they've gained into design and inspiration the last couple of years as they spent probably more time than they wanted to confined at home. My name is Nate E. Daly, the director of the Dallas Architecture Forum, and we're delighted that you're here. I'd like to recognize our panel season sponsors who make tonight's program possible. They are Bentley Tibbs Architect, Galaxy Modern, Janelle Alcantara, Purdy McGuire, Robin Minter Design Associates, Turner Construction, and Walter P. Moore. Now I'm pleased to introduce this evening's moderator, Ian Zapata. Ian is a design director at Gensler's Dallas office, leading design for commercial office buildings and headquarters campuses. His diverse experiences also includes aviation and hospitality design. Ian believes that great cities promote human development, and that has led him to be a strong advocate for better design in emerging cities like Dallas-Fort Worth. Ian is particularly interested in the types of solutions that arise out of unusual interdisciplinary collaborations and hybrid topologies. Ian's also a greatly valued member of the Forum's Board of Directors. He's given leadership as chair of our design symposium and as a past board president. So for a while, Ian was my boss. It's especially appropriate that Ian is here tonight to moderate this evening's panel, since again, Ian's firm, Gensler, designed the space. Ian will introduce our three panelists and then begin the program. So please welcome me, Ian.
Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Nate, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I think it's wonderful to be in this space, to finally see it realized. And I can't really think of a better place to talk about inspiration than a place where people come to learn, to be a part of a community, and to contemplate the important things in life. So today we're going to hear from three designers about the influences that shape them and continue to inspire their work and their outlook on life. So this is what we're going to do. I will introduce the panelists, and then each panelist will give an 8 to 10 minute presentation. I will try to be the time cop so we can have some time for a conversation. We will then have a brief conversation, a discussion amongst the panelists, and then we'll save some time to have questions from the audience afterwards. So with that, I will introduce first Daniel Gunn. Daniel is an emerging visual artist and a designer originally from Birmingham, Alabama. His ability to draw was discovered at an early age. Daniel's love of art and drawing continued through middle school and high school. In 1998, he enrolled in the Art, Advertising, and Design program at Burlington County Institute of Technology in Medford, New Jersey. While still in high school, Daniel also discovered an interest in architecture, and he pursued studies at the School of Architecture at Louisiana Tech. Daniel currently resides in the Design District and works for the award-winning Dallas architecture firm BOKA Powell. Daniel is also a member of the board of directors of the Forum. And when he's not busy designing buildings by day, he's honing his skills with the paintbrush and canvas by night. So I'm going to introduce, we're going to introduce all three of them first, and then we'll do the presentation. Directly next to Daniel is Tricia Quaid, who is the CEO and lead designer of Tricia Quaid Landscape Design, a full-service design-build firm. She earned her master's in landscape architecture from UT Arlington with honors. Tricia's master's thesis received an award from the American Society of Landscape Architects for her study of the relationship between design intent and design perception. Her travels around the world have informed her philosophy of creating spaces that are complementary to both the site and the architecture of each project. Tricia's respect for North Texans' lifestyle preferences and her knowledge of the ecological processes of the local environment undergird her design, utilizing native plants and materials. She and her team designs with intent of providing safe, dynamic areas for entertaining, play, and relaxation. Can you all hear me really well? Okay, good. And then last but certainly not least, Cliff Welch. Cliff Welch, FAIA, is a Dallas architect whose work has been honored at local and national levels. His background includes working with the late Dallas modernist Bud Oglesby after receiving his degree from UT Arlington, working as principal with Design International and founding his own practice, Welch Architecture, in 2000. Cliff creates timeless architecture rooted in classic modernism. His work evokes a richness of detail, materiality, craftsmanship, and artful composition, elevating awareness and appreciation for design. His work focuses on balancing vitality with restraint and celebrates attention to detail, honesty of materials, and respect for craftsmanship. Cliff's work has been recognized with over 30 awards and in many publications. His projects have been included in architecture tours. He has also participated in panel discussions, interviews, lectures, and symposia. So we're really excited to have our panelists here today. So with that, let's get started. Daniel?
Thank you all for having me here. I'm excited to share my story and my journey with you. So my journey as an artist began at age 7. I had the opportunity to share my artwork in the Birmingham Times newspaper as a kid. You know, as a child, it was really exciting to see my artwork in a newspaper alongside of some of my favorite comic strips, like Peanuts and Charlie Brown. So this is my journal from age 12. Please know my handwriting's not that good. So I decided that I wanted to be an architect at age 12. So if I didn't become a basketball player, then it happened, obviously, here you guys know. I decided I was to be an architect. This is my first time going to the World Trade Center, the original World Trade Center in New York City. This is circa 1995, 1996. These are two of my brothers here in the foreground here. These buildings really inspired me to pursue an interest in architecture because they were so iconic, and they still are to this day. Unfortunately, they were no longer around right now. Jean-Michel Basquiat is an artist that really influenced me to become a painter. I actually began painting around 2016, actually the time I moved to Dallas. Basquiat, he just really inspired me to really paint and to try painting. I found it kind of interesting that Basquiat also kept journals like me also. We both use the same composition notebooks to kind of doodle in and take notes in. As you can see here, it's kind of similar. If you've ever been to the DMA, you can see Basquiat's work on display right now. It's in the Curry collection right now. And also to the right of that is it's a painting of his from Christopher Bridges Museum of Art. It's called the Fisherman. So Basquiat used a lot of crowns as symbolism in his paintings. I kind of took that same idea to pay tribute to Basquiat because he really inspired me, and so I wanted to use that same iconic crown to pay tribute to him as well as a lot of famous people that inspired me to paint. As you see here, more crowns featured along Nina Simone here, Lauryn Hill, Erykah Badu, and Sade. These are my paintings, yes, correct. I actually spent a lot of time painting during the pandemic because I was at home, nothing else to do other than work, so I would paint my spare time also just to stay busy. Another artist that inspired me was Kehinde Wiley. He's really known for taking classic paintings and adding black people in them to kind of add a twist to them because, you know, black people are not really featured a lot in art history. So Kehinde Wiley kind of took that idea of interesting black people into some of his work. He's also known for painting the portrait of Barack Obama. Amy Sherrill was another artist that really inspired me to paint also. She's known for using gray skin tones in a lot of her work. She does that to kind of collect the viewer with her artwork. So you can see here she also painted the portrait of Michelle Obama also. Virgil Abloh was another amazing person that inspired me to paint. Unfortunately, he passed away last year. He was just a phenomenal person. He was an artist, a graphic designer, a DJ, and fashion designer also. This is an exhibit of his in Chicago, featuring some of his artwork, fashion design also. Here he is with architect Rem Koolhaas speaking. Here he is designing shoes, which he's known for also. So a hobby of mine is going to car shows and driving fast cars. All of the Lamborghinis are my favorite cars of all time. Maybe I get one day if I can afford one. This is me driving one on the racetrack in Talladega, Alabama. This is the Porsche Carrera Gt, another amazing fast car that I can afford. This is me driving on a racetrack at the Circuit America racetrack in Austin, Texas. If you see this, the speedometer there, it does say 132 miles an hour, so I was driving that fast on the racetrack. architecture. This is a home that I had a chance to design and build with my classmates at Atlantic University. We built that house out of SIPS panels, which is a very remarkable material for energy efficiency. It makes the house almost airtight and keeps in the cooling, keeps the house cool, nice and cool during the summertime. This is, they call it SIPS panels, S-I-P-S, SIPS. It stands for structurally insulated panels. This is the finished home here. This is the backyard here. So one of my favorite museums in the world that I had a chance to visit is the Crystal Bridges Museum of Art in Bedford, Arkansas. This is a really amazing building designed by Moshe Safdie. I just love the water, and it really makes the building come to life. The building itself is a work of art also. Another favorite museum of mine is the Modern Museum of Art in Fort Worth, designed by Ted Ondo. I really love his ability to use concrete, glass, and steel to create that light and shadow effect in the buildings. This is the interior shot here. Early in my career, I had the opportunity to design a building called the Rail Spike Park Pavilion. This is in Greenwood, Mississippi. I really love designing the project because I had the opportunity to work on a project that really involved the community coming together to create a design for them to come together as a place to share produce and have market events, flea markets, and things like that. As you can see, here's the exposed steel structure with a metal skin also, and a translucent polygal skin also. Here's a nighttime shot showing how it glows at nighttime. Another shot of it. Last year, I had the opportunity to design a mural for the Peru Museum of Science. My mural is called Giant Steps, celebrating the extraordinary achievements of African Americans in STEM. So this building was actually designed by Tom Main. I actually met him in 2016, 5 years before I entered this competition and won this competition. So Tom Main wrote me a letter congratulating me after I won the competition. And he invited me to come to his firm in LA, but I haven't been because of COVID, prevented me to do that. But this is the last slide here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which hugs the Mississippi River. Baton Rouge was originally built as a post to protect New Orleans, but eventually they moved the state capital to Baton Rouge because New Orleans was Sin City. The Art Deco State Capitol building stands 450 feet tall, 34 stories tall, and still stands as the highest capitol ever built. Huey Long made it a law that you cannot build any building downtown taller than the state capitol. From a planning perspective, I think that was a bad idea because it made government the biggest business in town. Louisiana remains predominantly industry, agriculture, tourism, and government. As far as residences go, not all architecture in Baton Rouge is in the Acadiana style. I grew up in a mid-century modern. Unfortunately, I'm redoing my house and I couldn't find the picture of it. The house I grew up in was in total shade. We had 42 live oaks on the property. I, as a young child, wanted to grow a tomato. So my mom helped me put a tomato in a container. I moved it around the entire summer trying to find the sun, and it was my first hard lesson in sunshade gardening. Being from Louisiana, it would be hard-pressed not to be influenced by art, architecture, and food. We were surrounded by the works of the vivid and almost childlike paintings of Clementine Hunter, the Cajun paintings of George Rodrigue, and of course, food. I love to cook, and I feel that putting together a good meal incorporates different seasonings, textures, and colors is really as much of a design project as a landscape project. My parents came from New Orleans. We visited often, and those roots ran deep. We spent a lot of time there, and much of the French culture where both architecture, art, and food were a necessity of life. But since coming to Dallas in 1982, the day I graduated from LSU, I have to say that I have never felt more comfortable. The blue skies, the big hair. Texas has so much to offer. It's not surprising, It's not surprising that art, architecture, and nature would inspire me. You don't need to go far for inspiration. The DMA has so many opportunities, whether it's from the recent exhibit of Van Gogh, Frida Kahlo, or the Kasami exhibit. They all serve as a unique way of looking at the world. However, I am most moved by the Nasher Museum. Ray and Patsy have such a world-class collection. I also appreciate the meticulously cared-for gardens. Even the North Park plantings serve as a good inspiration of color and composition. The State Fairground buildings in 1936 for the Texas Centennial serve as a model of classic beauty. The alley of crepe myrtles at the Arboretum in the winter allows for a nice study in shape, repetition, and focal point. A trip to Houston to visit the Manel collection is a great sounding board for restraint. The broken obelisk is a memorial to Dr. Martin Luther King and sits right outside the Rothko Chapel and is a constant reminder of all the dreams that have been cut short. It was exciting to see Rice University, a stunning example of Neo-Byzantine architecture, and to find this addition to the campus of modern steel and glass dining hall juxtaposed was breathtaking. Okay, well, this is Big Ben, so it wouldn't be surprising to you that nature would inspire me. So I have some beautiful images of Big Ben. St. Helena's Canton. Of course, you would have to go through Marfa and do a little shopping spree at Prada. It's the only way I could afford it. This is an installation just at a restaurant in Washington, D.C. that I bumped into in an umbrella exhibit. The Kasami exhibit in the New York Botanical Gardens serve as a great example for repetition. Maya Lin's Ghost Forest in New York City was an excellent image. It was, what she did was a statement on the death of the native forest in New York, the animals that lived there that died, and also an Indian tribe that was no longer after the development started in New York City. So the palimpsest of what she talked about, her image is representing of a deeper meaning of what was happening. During COVID, it's a very lonely, isolating time, so I did some virtual tours. So there's a company, Things to Do in DC, and they have virtual tours. I went to Jerusalem one evening and toured Jerusalem. And then another time I went to Barcelona, Spain, and I've been to Barcelona, but it was nice to see Picasso's. Come on, guys. Thank you, Gaudi, and the Sagrada Cathedral. So it was so lovely to see all these things virtually because I hadn't been able to travel. We haven't been able to do anything. So it was a great evening, basically. This is a project that I completed on University Boulevard, where it's a modern home, and we did Ipe decking, the basalt, limestone, acid wash concrete. It serves these family. This is the side view. We did some custom trellises and custom pots to add interest to a very blank wall. This is a 1950s remodel. You know, all the work doesn't have to be a multi-million-dollar project. This was a Mark D'Amato remodel in North Dallas, and we used concrete walls, and we think we did a really nice job putting that project together and making its statement. This is our last corporate project that we did. It was in Louisville. It's a company called Orthofix, and what they do is do medical processes, and they train doctors in the facility. So it's not only housing their employees, but they also train doctors. And so the containers were their logo blue, and the benches were from Escofet. It's from Spain. Bringing those in during the pandemic was a little challenging, but I think the meaning of it translated to the ultimate users. I'd like to talk a little bit about maintenance and garden care. That doesn't normally come up in these lectures, but to be organic and to take care of the property, it really extends the design intent a little bit for live plant material in the garden. So I think a lot of times I've gone into a garden that we did not take care of, and all of a sudden shrubs were overgrown, things were out of whack, and the design intent got lost. And I think that's something to be said about that. In conclusion, I'd like to just say that I think what we do matters, and I know right now that we're having a war in the world, and sometimes we feel like, oh, the world is falling apart, and what do we do? What we do as designers and architects, does it really matter? It does. I think it does matter, because I think that what we do changes the world. And if you've ever been in a building that makes you cry, which I have, and I know all the architects have, I think that is what we're striving for, is for that excellence in detail. Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming out on Fat Tuesday, squeezing us in before the president speaks tonight. It's good to see you guys out here. So at the risk of maybe offending some of the architects in the room, not to stereotype, but some of us and a lot of architects will use every single minute we're given whenever we have a project, right down to the end. So when Nate invited me to do this, he said he needed things by close of the day on Thursday, so I think I shot everything over at midnight. Woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning and thought, that's not at all what I want to do. So I text him the next morning from the gym and I go, can I completely redo it? So we're going to show a version of that comes at 4 o'clock in the morning. Oh, okay, I'll wing it. So design inspiration. So the first presentation even started with this broken concrete that's out on my walk. We all spent a lot of time in our houses over the last couple of years. And, when I go out and walk and I look down, Max Levy is famous for looking up at the sky. I look down and I see this piece of concrete, and I thought just the lines of it and the age and the texture and the form was really beautiful. So it's all around us. This was a cloud I saw on the way home one day, just coming across Mockingbird near White Rock, and it's amazing. There was people actually pulled over on the side of the road taking pictures of it. It was just magnificent. Sunsets over White Rock Lake. And then, so when we talk about what inspires us, as an architect, I'm inspired by just beautiful things that are well designed. So Dieter Rahm's industrial design that came through in the 40s and 50s, beautiful photography, beautiful paintings, music. This is Roy Buchanan. He's the greatest little-known guitarist ever. and beautiful cars and automobiles. So I had planned on talking about and how it influences our work. This is a little curve from one of our projects. That's the Hofmeister kink that was established on BMW years ago. And that logo that you're looking at right there is over 100 years old. So when you do something well, it's timeless and it lasts. And that's pretty close to what it looks like today. So I'd planned on showing architecture from all of my heroes, from Alvar Aalto, Raymond Pietla, O'Neill Ford, kind of talking to you guys about the buildings that influenced me. And then we were going to show all these beautiful projects of our work as you drive through and as you would see it from the street. Spent a little bit of time on Instagram over the last couple of years. So there's some incredible projects that are shown on Instagram that many of them are very futuristic. So, the places that you go when you're kind of stuck at home virtually to find architecture. And then I've built up quite this library of just beautiful images that speak to moments in architecture. So this is one of our projects in Jackson Hole. Again, going to show you lots of beautiful buildings. We're going to talk about lake houses we've designed that are on the boards, mountain homes that are on the boards, and houses here in Dallas that we're working on. This one's under construction. But you guys can go to our website and see all that. You can see the houses. We've got beautiful pictures by some wonderful photographers on the website. I send this out quarterly. That's called 6 Seconds. And what it is it's everything that inspires us as architects. So it's beautiful cars and paintings and photographers and artists right here in Dallas and local musician. So you can get to this stuff. So what are we going to talk about tonight? I'm going to touch on what it's like to live inside of an architect-designed home, because that's a little different than looking at it from the outside, especially since I've been living in mine for the last couple of years and working out of it and kind of getting through this private time we've had over the last couple of years. Although I have to admit, when I sent everybody home from the office, it was really nice to go up there and have the whole place to myself, so I kind of went back and forth. But this is a quote from a client talking about how much they really enjoy living in their house. This is a house that we design more than once a week, how much they love living there. And I love living in our house as well. This is a house that we did not design. This was Glen Allen Galloway from 1953. It's a simple little 2,000 square foot house on the other side of White Rock Lake. It's got a carport. We don't even have a garage door. Load-bearing brick, and it's glass that looks out to the back. There's little moments that you get when you live in an architect-designed house. So it's a very simple palette. It's a little bit of sheetrock that's been painted, load-bearing brick, but it was very well thought through. So the way the light enters the home at any given time of the day, those are storage cabinets in our dining room that give us places for all of our stuff, so it's not spread out all over the house. It was all thought through. The whole house becomes a screen porch when you open a 20-foot sliding door that in 1953 only cost $500. But you open this door and you let the park into your house, and it's like being outside. Things that I'll tell clients is it's nice when you can be in your house and look through your house. We'd be washing dishes at the kitchen sink, seeing my son studying his room when he was growing up. This was the other morning. I was walking through the living room, and the east sun is coming through this frosted glass and casting these shadows on the floor. So again, there are these little subtle moments that you get when you're living in something that's well designed. This is our bathroom light fixture, but in the east, when the sun comes up and rakes across the plaster, it's beautiful. It's a moment. Looking out through the clear story up at the sky and the trees, and now over the last couple of months, the bald eagles that are flying by. The shadows on a red brick wall of a Japanese maple. Simple, restrained details. This is a little floating shelf in our dining room that allows us to display things that are important to us. That's a Frank Welch photograph on the wall my wife gave me for Valentine's one year. Again, just the idea of having a place to put things, which a lot of times is not thought through in homes that architects have not designed, but just a place for things. Whether that's a David Gibson photograph that's meaningful to you, a Plattner chair that was given to you by a late architect that's since passed away, or everybody's got their bikes in their living room, right? So these are just some little moments from sitting out in my backyard. I was out there last night. The one on the end, I was walking through the living room and looked up, and that was the sky and the backyard and the moon, and little moments. And we really kind of came to appreciate that over the last couple of weeks when you're when you're there and can't get out and travel as much or go see friends. So I'm going to show you a few images from our houses of what it's like to be in them. This is the front pool on a house we did that overlooks White Rock Lake, reflection of the trees, sunset. Little house we did in Oak Cliff a few years ago, and this is the family during COVID, kind of all in one room working together. They liked it so much that he's now got a job where he can work from home all the time. Little subtle details. This is the same house. It's a 1930s farmhouse, and just the beauty of just a well-placed address, mailbox, and a light, the kind of things that you see every day when you come home. They traveled to Japan quite a bit, so they had pieces of art and furniture that they'd collected over the years. So we create a backdrop for those things that are important to the owner. This is a house I've been working on up in Lake Lavon. It's a very unique house. It has 3 pieces of furniture, no art. In the entire house, we've referred to it as the house of light and shadow. It's all about the way the sun comes in and rakes across the walls, and just seeing what it's like at different times of the day. Waking up in Jackson Hole overlooking the Grand Tetons, or in a high-rise on Turtle Creek where you're downsizing and things you've collected over the years are important to you. And then doing things like keeping the walls down really low where you get really nice views to the outside, sitting at your kitchen sink overlooking the Cleta Humphreys Theater. Or the Grand Tetons again. Nice place to get up and have a cup of coffee or some orange juice. And they don't all have to be hanging off a mountain. This is a little project here on Bachman Creek in Dallas where we've opened it up to the backyard. One over in East Dallas, it's the highest point in East Dallas. It's surrounded by other houses. We're in the middle of a neighborhood, but this lot's the highest point. So when you walk out of your master bedroom, go out to the deck, you feel like you're in West Texas. When you don't have the views, you internalize it. This is a Japanese-inspired house we did in over off of Overbrook, so we brought the outdoors in. 1953 arch swank house that burned to the ground, and we restored it, brought back all the original detailing from the original drawings. So this is a detail of these light panels you see when you walk in. And then the moments you can't plan, like the reflection off the marble dining room table from the landscape outside when you're sitting having breakfast. House we did out on White Rock where the owner had asked us to scatter all the family photos on the stairs as you go upstairs, and we found a way of making that, elevating that a little bit, and putting it where it becomes a destination or a path to do the family photos, and then having places for the pieces of art they'd collected over the years in their travels. House we did where it's a tight site, so we split it into 2 pieces. So when you go from the bedroom wing to the living room, you walk across this bridge and you look down onto a courtyard, all day long as you're moving back and forth through your house. And then this is the back of it. What a great yard to just have a fire pit, go out by the pool. It doesn't matter whether it's a really nice, big, expensive house or a small house like our little 2,000 square foot rectangle. It's the moments of architecture. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so thank you very much for these presentations. This is wonderful. And I think the timing of this panel is significant. Mask mandates are being lifted, and soon it just really feels like we're at the tail end of this pandemic that has really upended so much of what we once took for granted. And as with any collective traumatic event, it may take decades to unravel the cultural impact of what we've just lived through. I think we will see movies, books, the influence in art, in architecture in the coming years, trying to make sense of everything we've lived under. So with that in mind, I wanted to ask a couple of questions. The first one is, what change from the past 2 years would you like to make permanent in your life? And anybody can speak up.
I'll start. For me, I would say I would like to start slowing down more to a pause and really enjoy life, because what I realized in the pandemic was like you could be gone at any minute or any day. I lost a lot of people, during the pandemic, family members, friends. I just realized how important it is to really cherish life and live it to the fullest each and every day.
Trisha, I was going to say, when you said about buildings that make you cry, some of them have been mine. It has to do with the contractor, but go ahead.
I would say the same thing, just slowing down and trying to enjoy what's important. I think we've all had refocused over the last couple of years. Having some of that time at home has been really helpful, really trying to think about what's important to you and how to put that in perspective.
I agree with both of everybody that I think the introspective nature that we've had to experience, we've had more alone time. Also, my children are gone to college and beyond, so I've got the empty nester thing happening. So, but I've had more time to introspect and get more alone time and more thinking time. The one thing, the opposite of that question is what would we like to not have? And I think one of the biggest things, and I think I've had people that have died of COVID, other people have died of COVID, everyone knows people, or they've just died. And I think the one problem that has come from this is that people that are grieving aren't able to have that grieving process and that closure. So I would hope that that comes back to some sort of normalcy. This is not our first pandemic. Unfortunately, it probably won't be our last.
So, I guess, do you think that there's certain themes that are going to emerge in your work as a result of this, I guess, learning experience that we've had over the last 2 years? Or maybe is there a theme that you would like to see emerge from your work? And it's okay to say, no, I want to go back to the way things were.
For me, I think I would like to have more meaning, like the bringing into something that has a deeper meaning for people, whether it's something from their past or something from the future or culturally from them. I think that's what I would like to have happen a little bit more.
For me, as an artist, I would like to explore the themes of like celebration and unity, because I think we all need that in life. Because we see so much negativity in the world. Look at what's going on right now with Russia and Ukraine. I just want to see more positivity and unity in celebrating life.
I think it's also raised the awareness of what it's like when we are living in our own homes, and it's become a little more important because we've spent more time there, and you realize you can be locked down for a little bit. There's a lot more to it than just fixing that toilet leak that you've been trying to get to forever. It's really enjoying what it's like to be there. We've had a lot of calls from people who are going through and either doing a new home or they're modifying what's there to try to get it to where it fits their lifestyle and solves all the things that they're wanting to while they're there.
So tell me about, hopefully, as the mandates are lifted and people are going to get out to have a more active and maybe more normal life, what would you recommend to others? Maybe a book, a place they should visit, something they should experience this year. What would be your recommendation? You have to do this year. So last year, for the first time, I had a chance to travel out the country. I went to a place called Chichen Itza, Mexico. And I saw one of the seven wonders of the world. It's this amazing pyramid there. It's just awe-inspiring to see that the massive structure, these huge blocks that were used to build this amazing structure. Like to see how ancient people built, in those times. It's truly amazing. I'm definitely recommending everyone travel outside the country or somewhere new, experience different culture and different place. What about you, Tricia?
Well, since COVID, everything I've done is sort of local, right? So the experience of Big Ben is beyond fantastic. So I don't know if anybody's not been to Big Ben, but I would highly recommend it. I did one tour that was chef inspired, so they brought the chef with us, so that was even better. It's like glamping.
I would say the same thing. Because of COVID, we did more local trips. So we drove out to Fort Davis and went to Marfa and just enjoying the things that are within reach right here in Texas and realizing how much beauty there is all around us. It's really nice. And then I'll throw one other thing in. There's a book that I read probably 30 years ago called Pure Soul. And it's about taking the little things we do in life, whether that's going out and working in the garden, sitting in the backyard reading the newspaper, whatever those little things are, and realizing how important those are to our existence. So I think everyone's slowing down causes us to kind of think about those things again, instead of always rushing to get done what you need to do. Just, there's a lot to be said for just going out and spending some time in the garden.
That's great. I kept thinking you were going to say, well, it looks like collectively we all got sent to our rooms for 2 years, but you found a way to make this a very positive experience. I think what I'd like to do now is kind of open it up to the audience and have some questions for the panelists. So anybody want to volunteer a question?
Have you seen in the last 2 years that people are rethinking the rectangle of kitchen, dining, living, and wanting cozier spaces to sort of get away from the empty garden?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So yes, I think we're rethinking the way that we live, and that's from how we get Amazon deliveries coming in, and having space to go and be a little more separate when we're all at home at the same time. And then the other thing, I think there was a real yearning for communal experiences in the middle of this. So it may be reestablishing the front porch or creating a dining room in a way that you really want people to come over and sit for 2 or 3 hours with friends and enjoy a meal. So there's been a lot of little things like this that are starting to influence that.
Yeah, my question is to Trish. Have you noticed that people, since the pandemic, are rethinking their outdoor space and making it more user-friendly?
Oh, yeah.
Since everybody was so conscious, like go outdoors and stuff like that. And I wondered if that has motivated a lot of people to change what may be beautiful, but not necessarily user-friendly spaces. Usually it's great, but they're not that user-friendly, which is really taking the inside out.
That has been a trend for a long time because of the outdoor kitchens, outdoor fireplaces, outdoor fire pits. And I think that is one of the things that we need to look at is how did the family want to really use the space? Are they using the space to really use it, or is it just a visual? Are they just going to look at it and not use it? Or are they a family and people are going to be doing activities? And so yes, for sure it has affected how people want to live in the space and how to want to, the front porch, people do want to incorporate so their neighbors can walk by and they could talk to their neighbors. There's been more front yard activity, which is great, I think, because we used to be so cut off and everything was in the backyard.
About a year ago, a landscape architect friend of mine said, this is the best time to be in the business of outdoor space.
It's pretty busy.
Anybody else have a question? All right. I do want to ask one last question to the panelists, and it occurred to me, the buildings tend to be places where people gather, right? And so I think that speaks to something that architecture can offer in the future as we're now rediscovering what it's like to be around other people. And I'd like you to maybe share your thoughts about that. What could be the role of architecture going forward? Maybe there isn't a role for architecture. Architecture is just a vessel for people. What do you think?
That's a great question. I truly see architecture going in a direction that really encourages people to gather together and just hopefully celebrate, life in general. That togetherness. And that's something I hope architecture will do in the future.
Was the question, what's the role of architecture moving forward?
Yeah, I think this whole idea of buildings being about sheltering people, but I think now that we're appreciating being around other people like we're here today is, just share your thoughts about what that means of the value of architecture. Maybe it's not even the value of architecture, it's the value of gathering, but.
There was several years ago,
they were asking the architects in town if there was one building that was inspiring, what would it be? And mine was this little cross that was in the Grand Canyon, on the rim of the Grand Canyon. So it's really not a building, it's a gathering place. And it's where in the morning, 20 or 30 people that are out hiking would come to this little semicircle, look over the rim of the Grand Canyon, and there was a little cross right there. It's all about coming together and enjoying the moment out in nature. So I don't know if that's the answer. But
I think you teed it up perfect for Tricia. The best building is actually the outdoors.
I think for me, Thanksgiving Square here is fantastic. I mean, that is a very dynamic, simple space, but it is very moving.
All right. Well, any other questions from the audience? Please.
One thing I found myself exploring a lot when I was, cooped up is I got myself a cheap little digital drawing pad, a pressure sensitivity thing. And they started experimenting with that, and actually, instead of trace paper and stuff, and learning how to do drawing digitally from, kind of rethinking. I was curious if any of y'all experienced that or did any of that during these times.
So yeah, I actually bought an iPad for the first time last year, and I used it to draw and sketch on. It was the most relaxing thing to do, to rather than having to buy pencils and expensive paint, I could just put my iPad out and sketch and paint on that. So that's what I enjoy doing last year.
I didn't do that, but one thing I did do, like I had talked to my lecturers, these lectures online, the virtual traveling, and there's one tomorrow night from Things to Do in DC that is Ukraine and Chernobyl. And so, pretty timely. So I've done things like that. I've done things like, well, I think I'm gonna watch all the Academy Award nominees, like from my home. You can do that now. So that was pretty dynamic. And The Power of the Dog is one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. It's gorgeous. It was filmed in New Zealand, but it was supposed to be Montana in the 20s. It's a dynamic movie. So anyway, that's what I've been doing.
there's a lot of days where I'd like to just go back to the parallel bar and paper and draw, put the computers aside. But then there's also days where I think I showed some of those images of like Instagram and Design Booth, and how connected we are right now digitally to everything that's happening all over the world. And when at your fingertips, within a couple of seconds, you can see beautiful architecture from Russia and Japan and Africa and Mexico. It's everywhere. And 20 years ago, when we were in the drafting boards, 30 years ago, it wasn't nearly as accessible. You opened up an architectural digest, and it was harder to find those images. And now they're all there. So I have this incredible library that I can't even manage and get through of just beautiful imagery that I find digitally and collect. So when you're thinking about a wall texture or a window or a fire pit or something, you can go and see how people around the world are resolving those issues. So I think that's where digital has actually been positive.
Cliff, Tricia, and Daniel, thank you so much. We appreciate you opening up your secret, inside your mind and giving us a peek. So I would like the audience to thank our panelists, and thank you all very much for being here tonight. Thank you.